The information in this episode is current as of the date recorded and is not intended as financial, tax, or legal advice. You should consult your tax, financial, and/or legal advisors before implementing any transactions and/or strategies concerning your finances.
Well, thank you all for being here. My name is Ryan Sargent. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communication here at JGUA Ullman Associates. I want to thank you all again for braving the weather here and joining us on the holiday. We really appreciate you taking some time. I do want to thank my panelists as well. We'll introduce them briefly in a moment, but very busy time of year around here and appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedule. All right, now we can go to the next slide. So in talking about introducing these folks, I'll start down at the end of the table here with our President and Chief Operating Officer, Jason Nickerson. He has been a member of the firm. Our President and Chief Operating Officer, member of the firm's advisor team. He joined the firm in 1998, has worked across nearly every department in the firm before becoming our president in 2023. Jason holds a certified financial planner designation and is an IRS enrolled agent. He's passionate about financial education and giving back through teaching and community presentations. So Jason, thank you for being here. Next, I'd like to introduce to the other end of the table, Amber G. She's a senior associate advisor with more than 15 years of experience in the financial industry. She's passionate about helping individuals and families work towards their financial goals through client-focused, relationship-driven approach. Amber earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from Mansfield University in 2009 and holds her certified financial planner designation. She believes successful financial planning is built on trust, transparency, and strategies tailored to each client's unique needs. Amber, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And last but not least, I'd like to introduce, sandwiched in the middle, Spencer Keller. Spencer is an associate advisor who began his career in the financial services industry in 2023. He works with individuals and families across the region, providing clear, client-first guidance on retirement planning, insurance, and long-term financial strategies. Based out of Owego, New York, Spencer is committed to delivering thoughtful, tailored solutions that align with each client's goals. Spencer, thank you for being here. All right, we'll move to the next slide. So getting right to it, we do have a brief disclaimer that we have to go through before we start today's conversation. And then we do have questions that were pre-submitted as part of the registration process. We'll start there. And then at the end, we will open things up to the group to ask any and all questions to our panel that you guys have relating to today's topics of setting financial goals for the new year or otherwise. We'll leave time at the end for that to take place. So quickly into the disclaimer, the information discussed in this presentation is current as of the date noted. It's for informational purposes only and does not intend to address the financial objectives, situation, or specific needs of any individual investor. Any information is for illustrative purposes only and is not intended to serve as investment, tax, or legal advice, since the availability and effectiveness of any strategy is dependent upon your individual facts and circumstances. Results will vary and no suggestion is made about how any specific solution or strategy will perform in reality. So with that, we're going to move into our first question, and Amber is going to get us started. Amber, I wanted to ask you, when someone sits down to set their financial goals for 2026, where should they start and how specific do those goals need to be for them to be truly achievable?
I would say that when you're looking at your goals for the year, you really want to focus on getting clarity of what you want. That's not necessarily the numbers, but what do you hope to achieve? What do you want your life to look like this year? What do you want money to do for you this year? I think the second part of that is being very specific on what you want. So rather than just say, I want to save more money this year, you want to put actual numbers and a timeline on that. So you might say, I hope to save X number of dollars by December 31st of this year. That way you can check in, you know what you want, how are you progressing on that goal? And you want to make sure that your goals are aligning with who you are today, not necessarily your ideal version of yourself, because you want it to be a goal you can actually stick with. So having a goal that is important to you and you know it's realistic for you is more likely to succeed rather than a big plan that maybe is not necessarily achievable and fizzles out by March.
I do have a follow-up question either for Amber or the remainder of the panel. How do you balance being realistic with setting goals that push you forward? How do you balance being realistic versus what you actually want to accomplish?
Okay. I think that you have to know yourself. So maybe even taking a look back before you move forward to see what happened last year. What did you not like about last year? And what's reasonable for you to change from your previous habits. So if it is something where going out to eat with your friends every week is kind of just part of your routine and that's important for your social life and just your overall well-being is to go see your friends and have dinner, then it wouldn't be realistic to say, I'm not eating out this entire year. So that wouldn't be realistic. You want to balance what is achievable, and maybe it's a small goal to start. Short-term goals will lead to long-term success.
Next slide. All right, so on this next question, we're going to go to Spencer. So Spencer, how do you recommend people prioritizing competing goals? For example, debt payoff versus saving versus investing?
Yeah, this is a great question because it really depends on your individual needs at the end of the day. So if you have high interest debt, well, that's something you should probably knock off right away. Something like credit card debt, that's something you should take out right away. Then after you hit that, you want to get an emergency fund savings. So typically 3 to 6 months of income saved up, that's a good thing to have because you never know, medical expenses, a big bill might come your way, like your heater might go, you never know. And that's important to have. And then that's when you kind of go into the investment side of things. So you knock those two things out, now you can start investing your money and you can start putting in the market or whatever you want to do that fits your profile. So it really does depend at the end of the day. It's a huge scale and you got to fit what you think is going to fit best for you.
So kind of a follow-up question to that I have, Spencer. How does someone's age or life stage change the way that they should prioritize those things that we're talking about?
Right. So an older person might not have high interest debt anymore because probably don't have any kids that are still living in your home. So you're more likely to be invested or have an emergency funds savings picking up. So, but someone younger, life happens and you probably have high interest debt. And so knocking that off and then putting investing last would probably be a better situation for that person.
Go to the next one. Okay, so next one, I'm going to go to Jason, and I know this is a hot topic with you and some of the things you've written in the past. You can actually find some of that in your folder. Do New Year's resolutions genuinely help people or simply create unnecessary pressure? And overall, what are your thoughts on them as a whole?
Yeah, I have been pretty vocal on the whole topic of New Year's resolutions because, I think the actual outcome of them, and we've all heard the percentages before, are not great from a success rate standpoint. So how do we combat that? I actually want to start with the part around pressure, though, is there's nothing wrong with putting pressure on ourselves if we're trying to achieve a big goal, whether it be something that is, I need to improve my financial life because I'm not in a great position, or I want to have this aggressive plan relative to, say, retirement or something like that. So pressure is great. Doing it through a New Year's resolution is not the best because what we tend to do is say, I'm going to achieve this, and it's not a goal, it's a vision that we're stating. And there's nothing wrong with that. If anybody are readers, there's a couple of great books out there that reference this in a lot of different ways, but it's called Starting with the End in Mind. Okay, so if you have a vision, this is where I want to go, then you have to do the work and put the work in to build the smaller steps, like Amber was saying earlier, to put the small steps in place. And then execution is very simple once you put in the work up front. Execution becomes simple because you put the map out in place, okay? So the whole notion of New Year's resolutions is built upon a psychological bias called fresh start bias, okay? Meaning we're gonna take this date or the starting point and we're gonna make this massive change, and we don't put the work in on the smaller end of the step. So this is why I'm very vocal against New Year's resolutions, but I am not opposed to goal setting. Goal setting is so incredibly important in what we're trying to achieve. It's just getting around this notion of New Year's resolutions. The other problem I have with this is that a lot of people are doing these types of things, whether it's New Year's resolutions or fresh starts, and it's the dopamine hit that they're getting when they make the statement outward to other people. And so there are a couple of other authors. Robert Greene wrote this great book called 48 Laws of Power that says, surprise people with your success. His point was, don't talk about what you're going to do publicly up front, is get it done and let people see that, right? So it's this whole notion around New Year's resolutions has really morphed into things that won't make us successful. It's the work that we have to put in behind the scenes, whether it's the details of the plan themselves or the execution, and then achieve the goal at the end. And it doesn't matter when you start too, by the way. I mean, it could be a random Wednesday afternoon and you say enough is enough.
And I guess off of that, a second question I had, and this is for Jason or the panel as a whole. Do you see more success when people are focusing on changing their habits rather than like a specific outcome, like a specific, like we're talking about like a resolution, or have this very specific thing in mind? Like, we're focusing more on the habits that you have, whether that be financially, personally. Have you seen better outcomes and kind of working in that realm?
Yeah, to me, habits are important. If you do something for 30 days, you're going to start picking up on that. You're going to continue to do it. If you're inconsistent with it, say one week you work out for 5 days and the next week you don't, you're not building any consistency. Consistency is key. It develops great habits. So to me, habits extremely important to answer that question.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. It is why, and it's also been studied ad nauseum, that when we set financial things in motion to just happen automatically, okay? We're saving into a 401k. Why does it work better that we easily save into our 401k than it is to make an IRA contribution here? The reason is because we set it automatically in motion, right? Without knowing, we've created a habit, we've created a discipline, because it's kind of done for us, okay? Now imagine the power of that if we had to own that routine and discipline every day, where we're waking up with the choice saying, do I do this or not? The power and the ownership and the accountability that you build are so important. And again, I'll go back to one of the points that Amber made, is you're building discipline through those small steps, right? So if you're trying to build discipline and I'm going to lose 50 pounds, you're never going to lose 50 pounds. If I build discipline through I'm going to eat well, I'm going to work out, and I'm going to lose 2 pounds a week, you will build discipline on a shorter term basis and a longer term basis. And you can apply that to your finances as well. Okay, I'm not going to use the credit card this day. I'm going to save more this week, and then next week I'll do more, and next week I'll do more. So small steps combined with that repetitiveness will build that discipline, and it's way easier to find success through those things. Yep.
All right, we can move to the next question. And this question will go back to Amber. How often should someone revisit their goals to stay on track? And what simple habits can make the biggest difference over the course of the year?
I would say you probably want to check in monthly, review your statements, review your credit card. Are you staying on track when you look at that monthly statement? Are you spending less than you wanted to? Are you trying to put money away to save? So just being aware and checking in monthly, it's going to be a lot less pressure than maybe checking in every day, right? Because you might have to make a large expense on one day, but that doesn't mean your plan is ruined, right? Is your overall goal staying on track? And like Jason was saying, those simple habits of automatic savings, having something automatically set up where you don't have to think about it and it's just done for you, that's going to lead to success, as well as the awareness of where you stand on the goals that you've set.
So on something you said earlier in the question, I'd like to get the thoughts of the whole panel on this, but when you're working with your clients and doing these kind of like reviews, what do those check-ins look like? Are they 5 minutes? Are they an hour? Like, how deep do we go to make sure that we're staying on track? I'd just like to get the...
As far as advisors, or okay. I think that we like to go through, everything that you've done. So we check in from our last meeting of any goals that we set. How are you doing on this, and this? We also want to review your accounts with you. So, I mean, I don't think it's a 5-minute conversation.
Right.
We're definitely trying to get in depth and make sure that we are still aligned on any goals that we've set.
I think hit that.
Yeah, I agree. I think as advisors, we are more leaned on to help define the vision a little bit better. And to help set up systems that will create the discipline and the routine and whatever that looks like. So our reviews tend to be longer, but match kind of where in what realm we're operating in. Are we in the short term or are we in the long term, right? And so we are partners with our clients to say, let's define the vision, let's create the system. We need to partner with you to help, but you're kind of in that execution phase. And so as we're coming back together, are we executing, and is the definition still matched to then reach the vision? And so, these can happen and take longer. Usually that shorter term, are we executing? Yes, we're executing. Cool. Has anything changed though in that longer term? That tends to be then the longer conversation.
All right, next question. All right, so this one is going back to Spencer. Sorry about that. What are the most common mistakes or pitfalls people face early in the year when trying to reset, and how can they avoid the feeling of, I blew it, I'll start again next year?
Yeah, to kind of go off what both Amber and Jason both been saying is you got to have defined goals. If you're not having defined goals, you're not going to go anywhere. You'd be like, well, I'm going to save money this year. Well, what does saving money mean? Does saving money mean $1,000 or $50,000? So if you get specific with your goals, you're not going to have these pitfalls that a lot of people experience. And always staying motivated. You need a new roof, and that doesn't destroy your goals. You can still keep on continuing. It's so important to stay motivated and not lose focus of what you have going on. Because if you do, you're going to keep on in the same pattern of life. I'm saving here, something bad happens, and I stop. You can't do that. You got to stay consistent.
So if someone does experience a setback of some kind, how do you frame it as more of a learning experience? Like if we have a goal for retirement that we're trying to reach and we don't hit the goal exactly where we wanted it to be in a certain time frame, how are we able to kind of reframe that and use it as a learning experience or a way to set a new goal instead of having it kind of derail the whole plan?
Right. You got to adjust your goals, or you got to adjust your end plan there. If your goal is to have $1 million at retirement, but you end up with 900 grand, well, you still set yourself up in a pretty good position. But now maybe you don't take a vacation now. You miss out on a vacation or two. And that's okay. It's part of life. You're going to miss out on things. You can't have FOMO about life. My mother always told me, don't have FOMO, because you can't be in fear of missing out on things. You got to keep going. It's in the past. Look forward to the future. Those are important things.
It sounds like self-compassion in a situation like that can be really important. We can move to the next one. All right, so this one going back to Jason. How can someone build a more flexible, real-world budget that adapts to life surprises?
Yeah, and this kind of jumps off of what Spencer was saying. Is it's important at the very start to understand, and we all know this, but we often have to remind ourselves of that there are things that we can control and things that we can't. So when you're building a very mathematical, objective-oriented plan, there's still things that are going to impact that plan positively and negatively that we don't control. So it's important to build a range and an expectation of a range, whatever that range means. So Spencer was saying, if there's a number goal of $1 million to retire on and you hit 900, did you fail? Not necessarily, because maybe that's within the range that you were hoping for. So give yourself room for error right up front in the planning. If you're planning down to the penny, you're going to feel that failure. So it's important to build in expectations appropriately. Severally, when you get down to the very nitty-gritty, it's also important to build in room for error on a mathematical basis, whether that's within your cash flow, within investment results. You move into retirement and you have built your whole plan on some percentage rate of return, you know that can't happen every single year. So you build that into your plan right up front. What's the worst case? What's the best case scenario? This is the type of thing that we do when we're doing long-term planning with clients. So it's an expectations and how you structure the plan.
So based on your, just a follow-up question, based on your experience or the experience of the panel, you spoke specifically to retirees there. What's one category of a budget that you often see that kind of gets overlooked, that we have to say, no, we have to, within the budget, we have to allocate something towards this that maybe a lot of folks don't think about?
That's a great question, because I do feel that's where we add a lot of value, given experience and other client experiences, where we can say, well, we understand that this is how you envision retirement going, or approach to retirement, but let me share with you some things that need to be factored in. So as we work through the actual planning phase, our process looks like this. We ask our clients for a year's worth of cash flow information. Okay, that's the factual data historically that we start with. And for most people, this is what life cost me. Okay, but then where we can come in and say, okay, not everyone buys a new car every year. Not everyone has the same level of medical expenses every year. So let's take the factual, let's understand that. And now we come back and say, okay, now let's talk at a very top level. What does retirement or this next phase kind of look like? How often will you buy a car? How often will you travel? Are you going to sell the house and buy a new one? You're going to buy a second house. Health insurance and health expenses, as we all age, they're likely to go up. So we build in ranges of error in that to make sure that, again, we're not caught off guard and so on. So there are things that we can build on from our experiences in these bigger picture items to make sure we add some insulation to the overall cash flow.
We'll go to the next question. All right, so this one, back to Amber. How do you balance short-term goals with long-term planning? Well, a very short but loaded question.
Yeah,
there.
it's a great question. I think that if you are focusing on the long term, then your current life could feel very restricting, because you're just focusing on this long-term goal. But if you only focus on short term, then the future might seem very stressful, because you're not quite there yet for the future. So I think balancing them is very important. I think one thing that is helpful is assigning your money different jobs. So for short-term money, that's things like vacations, emergency funds. That's money that is accessible to you now. Your long-term money, that's the job of retirement, future independence, anything in the future that you need. So if you can assign your money those different jobs when you're thinking about these goals, then you'll be less likely to borrow from the future to pay for the present.
And then a follow-up to that. What risks do you, as the panel, see that exist when someone focuses too much on one side of the coin versus the other? We're focused too much on the short term versus the long term, too much on the long term versus the short term. What risks kind of exist, I guess, in living on both sides of that coin?
I would say, if you're focusing solely on the long term and you're maxing out everything you have to focus on that long-term goal, that's a perfect example of where you're cutting yourself short in the short term, because you're trying to max out that long-term goal right away instead of slowly. So you can focus on those short-term goals. That leads to long-term consistency.
I would add to that, there's a commercial out there by another financial firm. Two guys are sitting and eating a pizza, and one says, yeah, I'm working with my advisor to plan out my retirement, whatever, and I've got a plan. And the other one says, my plan is like the hope plan, I'm just hoping, right? And so I'm just hoping I'll have a good retirement. And so I would take the balancing of the short and the long term is, here are the risks, right? Is that if we're only focused on the long term, that you're missing a lot of today's life, and none of us know if we're ever really going to get there. So there's a plan, there's a live for today, plan for tomorrow part of this whole long-term planning thing. I think if you only focus on the long term and not on the short term at all, you're also likely to miss the long term, right? It's sort of like, saying, standing at the bottom of the mountain saying, I'm going to get there, but having no idea how you're going to get there, right? So That's a risk. On the short-term side, focusing too much on the short term, you have no path, you have no destination, and you could actually burn out, right? Because you're just so focused on every penny, minute to minute, that you will burn out. You'll lose sight of where you're really heading because you have no vision.
Next question. Why do financial resolutions often fail, and how can people break that cycle? And this question is going to Spencer.
Yeah, you got to create a system. And people used to knock Tom Brady for this when he was with the Patriots for being a system quarterback, but it worked out for him. 6 Super Bowls, and because he worked well in that system. So if you can create a system for yourself, you can be like Tom Brady and win 6 Super Bowls. Just kidding. But creating that system could lead to great success long term. So, like Jason mentioned, the automatic investing. That there's, especially nowadays with technology, you could do it for like every single account. You could set up an account and it takes out $5 a day or $100 a month, whatever you want to set it up with. But you only know it takes it out, and it can help you save better too. Now, automatic bill pay, that depends on how you feel with that. Some people like to make the payment because it sticks in their mind versus coming out every month. But I think automatic investing is a great idea. It's something that most people should do because it helps you stay focused. You know that money's coming out, and it's creating a system. So to wrap that all up, create a systems king. Create your system, and it can lead to great things for you long term.
For the panel at large, when clients come to you and they say, you know, I had this goal and it failed for whatever reason, do you find it's usually a planning issue, a behavior issue, or both? Do you think it's, or an execution issue even, of like, we had a solid plan and it didn't work out for whatever reason? Is there a common theme when you're seeing these potential shortcomings, or even on the flip side of that, exceeding a goal? Is there things that stick out on that side as well?
Yeah, to me, it's a mix of both.
Okay.
There is an aspect of it of being able to set yourself up, and there's a behavior aspect to everything. There's emotional and a strategic side to everything. If you're being strategic, it's going to work out for you. Emotionally, it's key. Like kind of like the short term. Like, yeah, it feels good to go on that vacation to Italy, but is that the best move at this time? Probably not. But there's an emotional side to that. So balancing emotional versus strategic is important and can help you see happiness in life while also maintaining short-term and long-term goals.
I would add to that too. I mean, it's there's nothing wrong when failing a goal, to reach a goal or an objective, that is stepping back and reviewing what went right, what went wrong, and build upon the rights and try to correct the wrongs. But also, like what I said earlier, there is an aspect of things that we just don't control, whether that's good or bad. So exceeding a goal, meaning you put together this long-term plan and you get into retirement and you're reviewing it and saying, well, this is great. We actually have more capital accumulated than we had planned on having at this point in our lives. We could have lived better in the early part. Well, maybe, okay. But let's look at the things that happened outside of our control. Let's look at what we talked about earlier, building in a range, margin of error right into our planning. Maybe that margin of error never was needed. So there's to the positive side and the negative side. You kind of go back. What was within our control? What do we need to fix now? And you do the best that you can to lay the next best plan. And I'll say this too. I hold firm the belief that we as humans can't predict with any level of accuracy out past 5 years. So if you're looking at a plan that spans 10, 20, 30 years, just know that you need to do that, right? That's the visionary part. But just know you're going to need to revisit that because your level of accuracy looking out that far is terrible. And you need to be able to say, okay, well, we're 5 years into this. How well did we do? And now we can see the next 5 years a little bit better. Right, so there is an aspect of planning where we're setting ourselves up for failure anyway because we just can't predict out that far.
And I would say it's important to not have an all or nothing approach, right? Like things happen, but it doesn't mean everything is catastrophic. So you can always recover, and it doesn't. Like, the more you do the all or nothing, and then one thing, then you're done with that goal. You're gonna say, well, I tried and it didn't work, but you just have to stay consistent. Say that happened, but what am I going to do to move forward now?
Move to the next question. How can people stay motivated when progress feels slow? This question's going to you, Jason.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in revisiting the plan. And when I say the plan, remember what we talked about. We've talked about vision, specific actions, and execution. And there are times it is going to feel slow. But if everything is sort of checking out, maybe sometimes it's just I need to be hands off and just let it happen, right? Because as long as the vision still is the same, the plan still makes sense, and my execution is solid, that's where people start to get antsy. They feel slow progress, or I'm not moving as fast as I thought I would, but everything still seems to check out. Maybe I just need to take a step back and just let it happen. Keep following the same plan, because that's where we'll make stupid decisions. Is we'll go, well, it's not fast enough. Something's got to be broke. So I would just be very careful about overanalyzing.
So we're all really excited about the goals that we have now. We all have these big dreams, goals that we want to achieve in the year. Come June or July, those goals can maybe start to fade to the back a little bit. So how, as a group here, how do you encourage clients during that kind of boring middle of the year? How do you keep them motivated? How can I keep myself motivated towards that goal that I was so excited about at the beginning of the year? I'm planning January 1. I'm going to retire this year. I'm going to make it happen. And I get to the middle and it's kind of faded to the back with other things. How can I keep myself motivated to reach that goal in that boring middle, I guess?
Well, I love this question because we've hit on a lot of, I would say, I don't know, Amber, you're the psychology major, the psychological aspects of this, right? Is that motivation is for me, this is just my opinion, motivation is a very dangerous word. Discipline is a much stronger word than motivation. When we recognize discipline over motivation, that you tend to be more successful. We've developed the routines, the habits, this is what we're doing. So that, as Ryan, as you're asking, is what do we do when things get boring and slow and they're not moving fast enough? Frankly, that is discipline. Discipline should be so boring, right? If you have a morning routine, everyone think of their morning routine right now in your own minds. Think of your morning routine. What do? I get up, I do this first, then I do that, and I do that. And probably you didn't even know that was your routine. But if you didn't do that one morning, how different do you feel about that? You probably feel a little off, right? Like this isn't the same, okay? It is okay for things to be boring and rote, and actually that will lead to more success. It's when we try to make things dynamic. We are making mistakes in the decision making and breaking discipline. Discipline is incredibly strong. Motivation is temporary. And so we need to make sure that it's okay to keep that same discipline, do those same things over and over again. Having those regular check-ins of, is the vision the same? Is the plan the same? Am I executing the same? If it's all leading on the same path, welcome to the boring part of life. That's okay.
All right, we can move on to the next question. So this is our final question of our pre-submitted group. So following this question, the floor is yours. Any and all questions that you have, I'd be happy to coordinate that with the panel. So start thinking about that now. But in our final question that will go back to Amber, what is something you would want to tell clients as they are planning their financial year?
This is a great question to kind of wrap up everything that we've talked about today. I think some of the main points that I'd want to make sure everyone was clear on is that your financial goals should complement your life, not compete with it. They need to be realistic to what you want. They need to have a balance between the short term and the long term. They need to be reasonable for your lifestyle, your income level, your family situation. So making sure that they are realistic to who you are and to what you want. And I think also knowing that life does change and it is okay to make adjustments. Your plan's not failed. You just have to make a change and, progress over perfection. You can't build Rome in a day, as they say.
A follow-up question for the panel. In a general sense, what do you wish more people understood about financial Like as they set off on their journey to reach these goals, these financial goals that we're talking about, what's something that you wish more people understood up front? If you can pinpoint one thing.
It's okay to miss a goal. It's not do or die. You're going to miss things. It happens. It's life. You move forward and you look at the next goal that you have in mind. Life happens. It's okay to miss things. Don't stress about it.
I think also your goals don't have to be big and lofty. They can be small little goals that make you feel satisfied that, I've done things where I'm not doing Amazon this month. And I did it. I did a good job of not doing that. So it can be just a small goal. It doesn't have to be this big, lofty, future changing goal. You can start small.
Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future updates. Looking for more insights like this? Head over to our website at jgua.com for additional resources. And if you'd like to talk about your personal financial goals, we'd love to help. Just click the Schedule a Meeting button highlighted on your screen to book your complimentary consultation. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you in the next video.